Hello channel. Today I will be reviewing chapter 11 from a separate piece. I would like to call this chapter broken because of two reasons. First, because of the explicit meaning of the word broken. As you may know, in this chapter, a tragic event occurs. Finney falls from the marble staircase and breaks his leg. Second, because of the metaphoric meaning of the word broken, since Finney's soul breaks, because in the meeting at the assembly room, he finds out that the one who caused the accident was Jean, his best friend, and also because the friendship between these two breaks. So, chapter 11 starts with Jean returning to Devon from Leper's house, and he wants to see Finney. In the previous chapter, Jean went to visit Leopard because he wrote him a letter explaining that he needed his help. Jean finds his friend in the middle of a snowball fight, clearly organized by him. During the snowball fight, the reader can clearly perceive Finney's personality. Phineas is a charismatic and natural leader. There is a quote that says, "He gathered all the students with easy authority." Also, in the snow fight, Finney's vision about sport is depicted because he said that there were no winners or losers, and the fights end up with all the students throwing snowballs at him. And as the chapter continues, Jean tells Finney and Brinker that Leopard had changed. He's a different person, because he had deserted the army and went crazy. Brinker says, "It's even June yet, and we've already got two men sidelined for the duration. That means the war." This pair included Leopard and Finney. In my opinion, Brinker is trying to say that Finney and Leopard are useless for war. By this time, war seems to be real, so there are no Olympics and no hopes for the boys. I think that Brinker symbolizes the end of Jean and Finney's fantasy. The boys didn't want to see the truth of the war. And with time, the students were enlisting in the army. And this is also a symbol, because this means that boys were maturing. They were becoming men and living childhood. In one occasion of the chapter, Brinker confronts Jean and tells him that he didn't join the army because he pitied Finney, and that Phineas must accept his condition. Brinker wants Jean to see reality. Finally, Phineas accepts that the war is real because Leopard went mad. Phineas says, "If something can make a person go crazy, then it must be real." In previous chapters, Finney believed that war was organized by fat, old, and powerful men, but now he believes in war. We can interpret this as Jean and Finney are no longer in a separate piece. The boys ended up with their hopes of going to the Olympics, but now they're preparing for war. So that was all of chapter 11, and Geronimo will continue with the analysis. Thank you very much.
Well, Brinker asked Jean and Finney to assist the assembly room at the top of the first building. Once they entered, they realized there were 10 senior boys sitting right there. At first, they thought he asked them to be there only for bother them. But once they enter, Brinker starts making a public exhibition of Finney's limp, which Jean finds to be not so tactful. After, Brinker asked Phineas to retell in his own words what happened up in there in the tree. Before Phineas started with his story time, Jean cuts in, and Brinker shuts him down, saying, "We are investigating Finney's accident. Please shut up." The atmosphere is very tense there in the assembly room. Finney doesn't like to talk about this, but imagine Jean's feelings. As Brinker is too insistent, Finney begins his story. He started saying he just fall, but when Brinker presses him on this issue, Finney says something very interesting. "I have had a feeling that the tree did it itself, almost though the tree shook me out by itself." It is very easy to see that this whole event is fuzzy in Finney's mind. When Brinker presses him for more details, he can even remember whether or not he was alone in the tree at the time. First he thinks Ginny was down in the bottom, and then he thinks Ginny was in the tree with him. He gets confused. So imagine poor Phineas what he was living out there in the assembly room. Boys realized that this is getting them nowhere. Someone shouts out that Leper was there at the time, and that now he was in the campus. Brinker sends one of the boys to bring him as a witness. Leper enters the assembly room. As he begins to give his testimonial, he speaks a bit like, well, a crazy boy. When he describes the two boys up in the tree, he says that they move like an engine. Fortunately, he explains, an engine has two pistons. One moves and the other moves. Brinker wants to know which boy moved first, the one who fell or the other boy. But Leper refuses to answer this question. Brinker got angry and called him bastard, so he asked him to leave. Before things can get ugly, Phineas stands up and said that he don't care about it, so he stood up and left the room. Then, from inside the assembly hall, the boys hear the sound of Phineas exiting, reaching the marble staircase, slipping and tumbling down of them.
Chapter 12, it's a very dramatic one in the story about the separate piece, and I will be summarizing it as part of a group D. Of course, as they have mentioned before, in the chapter 11, there has been a major event related to Phineas and actually all the different school, where he suffers another injury. He falls from the stairs, and he basically breaks his knee again. This was added to the whole scandal that was going on through the corridor, where most of the students were blaming and accusing Jean for the previous accident his friend had suffered. So when Finney actually realizes about it, there was a mixture of feelings where he ends up very angry and confused and falls again from the stairs. There he breaks his knee again, and he will be taken to the infirmary while actually an operation will be needed. So we have to look at Jean's feelings now. He was feeling terrible, responsible for both injuries in a part and for every misfortune his friend was going through. And this made him react, and obviously he tried to see and to understand what was going on with him. So he follows him through every place of the building until he reaches the infirmary. We can actually identify the two things most important of the story. We talk about friendship and rivalry, this mixture of ideas that were going on between these two friends. I think friendship is the most important one, since although every rivalry and every misunderstood that there has been between both of them, with Jean's state of concern and interest towards Phineas, we can identify clearly what kind of friends they are and what they care for each other. Yes, and quite difficult part when the following day he is ordered to bring Phineas close to the infirmary, since he needed them to stay quite a few days. So after collecting everything, he was taken to Phineas, who was now awakened and quite angry, and starts to throw everything he had in his heart and in his body to Jean, and she admits the idea that he denied war, since he didn't want a war in which he wasn't part. So he confessed that he was asking the armies of every time, Marines and every type of army, and including other nations to Russia, to enlist for the army, but he never received a yes. So this was a quite difficult part, but obviously Jean apologized and explained everything, and I think Finney, having understand this, he was quite able to realize that it was okay to accept this apologize. So they to reconcile between both of them. And they will meet again at 5 after the operation was done. But after Jean taking lots of classes, he realized he comes back at 5 and talked with Dr. Stample, who gave a special special verdict saying that this kind of news will be quite common for people of their age. Obviously, talking about war, in which he then confessed that that Finney has passed away after the operation, and we have this only idea of Finney and Jim Bees one, where he didn't react at all, he didn't cry, since he declared that I could not escape a feeling that this was my own funeral, and that he did not cry in that case. Talking about that, he and Finney were so close that he couldn't just accept his death.
This school year is about to end and Jean class graduates are about to graduate. The school donated its distant quadrilateral to the military for use it in a parachute reaching school. At the beginning of the summer, the army looked at it from Jean's window to occupy. Brink took Jean to the bathroom to meet his father, who expressed his hope that he was young so that he would join the war. Disgusted when he heard that Jean's plan to join the Navy and avoided the danger of the infantry, Brinker decided to join the Coast Guard. He taught them the importance of serving the country honorably and said that their lives will depend to a large extent on what they did in the war. When he left, Brinkel apologized for his far attitude, condemned the older generation for waging over war, and then expected the younger generation to fight with it. He went to pack his luggage and Jean went to the gym to clean his lockers. He found a parachute reaching row in the locker room and watched them prepare to go to the sports field to do aerobics. Jean knew that he would join the same gang soon, but he was glad that it would not happen in Devon.
The last part of the book starts with Jean talking from a different perspective, the same one as at the beginning of the story, that is from the present, from his older self, talking about the past. Here he reflects about everyone's enemy, of how he had one at Devon and he finally killed it, making a reference of Finney's death. Then he talks about the different enemies from Brinker, Leper, and Quackenbush, the ones that they discovered at wartime and confronted it in different ways. And lastly, it ends up with a reflection about Finney, of how he didn't hate anyone or wasn't afraid of his enemy. So he really never ever sensed the existence of it, and he described it as a positive thing about his friend.